things you must know before visiting Atlantis Resorts in Bahamas. So I was just in Bahamas here just a few months ago, and I feel like there were changes, but not too much has changed, especially with the Atlantis Resorts piece of it. And the first thing you need to know is most people visit Atlantis and they end up in Bahamas via a cruise. And the first time I went over there, that was the same for me. I went via cruise, we came, cruise stopped off at the cruise port, and then you have to make your way over, of course, to Atlantis. So I will throw up an image here just for reference. This is actually a picture of me just a few months ago at the cruise port in Bahamas, and all the way in the background you will see that is, of course, Atlantis Resorts. So I throw that image in there because it's not next door, so you will need some sort of transportation in order to be able to get over there, and also you will need to ensure that you procure transportation to bring you back to the ship timely. If you decide to purchase a ticket for your trip to Atlantis, ensure and verify what you're actually purchasing. A lot of folks feel that when they come and they purchase a ticket via the cruise line or somewhere else, that the cruise stops at the cruise port, and then your ticket is supposed to be an all-inclusive situation over at Atlantis. And I am here to tell you, first things first, that is not the case whatsoever. So make sure you read the fine print. If you're not sure, ask. There are a lot of things in the booking process, especially with any cruise. It will not give you complete details or information about what that actually entails or maybe what the ticket entails. That's when you get on the phone, you call a representative, and perhaps get the information that you need. Once you get over to Atlantis, you will find that each section is broken down into a variety of areas. Again, like I mentioned previously in step one, it's not an all-inclusive situation. So if you pay for simply transportation to and from, no matter what the rate is, if you pay to and from, they will bring you to, they will let you know how to get in touch with the transportation service to get back to the cruise port, and that is it. Anything else you're interested in, or any of the other amenities or activities that you want to do while you're at Atlantis, will be at an additional fee. And that, even just from a few months ago, was still something that so many people, so many travelers were not aware of, did not know, and did not expect or anticipate to shell out additional funds as they did, or maybe chose not to at that point in time. So to be able to go to the other areas, you're going to be looking at the Adventure Water Park, marine habitats. Of course, that's going to be where the aquarium is, pools and beaches, bars, and of course golf. So it's kind of going to be broken down into one of those areas of something that people tend to do. Now the other thing too, we're going to morph into section 3. Those items there at Atlantis are going to need to be purchased with a card, credit card, a debit card, some sort of a card. Many things you'll see there, they will not accept cash. It's my understanding, of course, one, for the resort, that's a safety thing. Two, for a lot of companies and businesses, it helps them track their funds. I've heard that directly from certain businesses and entities, and that's how they're able to say, yep, we're actually getting the funds from the consumer, and not something that happened to have happened along the way, if you know what I mean. So to alleviate that, this is again another one of those companies, you do have to have a card, and especially for a lot of us who do travel, especially abroad, you do want to carry, a limited amount of things in the event that there is something that does happen, i.e. like a robbery or, or theft, or if you just simply leave something behind, right? You don't want to have a ton of your personal information, and you do feel that it could perhaps be better, on the ship, in the safe, or somewhere else locked away, and that is your personal choice. But again, do make arrangements to have a credit debit card, maybe at least 2 available to you, so you can enjoy your time while you're at Atlantis. 4, pre-book as much as you can. So when you pre-book, you not only have a plan, but you have a schedule. So your schedule will allow you to, 1, get off the cruise ship as soon as possible, or at least in time for you to be able to get to your excursions or other activities. And it will also allow you to better plan and set up for your day. What I can say is, not only on my last cruise to Alaska, but also on the previous cruise that I had immediately before that to Bahamas, sometimes when you get to a cruise port in Bahamas, they directly have a port there. So because they have a cruise port, the cruise ship is able to come in, they dock, the ramp comes out, you scan your sailing sign or your sea pass accordingly, and then you're able to get on and off the ship as you please. However, in some locations, if there's a tender situation, depending on where the cruise is, or depending on the agreement the ship has with the port or the cruise line has with the port, they are only able to let off and bring back as many people as the tenders will allow. So sometimes you're limited at the time frame that you're able to get off the ship and also come back, so that's something to keep in mind. But if you ever have an excursion, especially when you book your excursion through the cruise, it has to be through the cruise. They will say, hey, your excursion is at 9 o'clock. Hey, you're going to get priority to be able to get off the ship. And that is the same thing when there's always a time crunch. So that is something to consider. Another thing that also helps you with booking as much as you can, as early as you can, is it limits what you're going to have to bring. So on that last number, I also mentioned about the need to bring a credit card, a debit card, or something with you to be able to pay for other things that come up. One is going to help you with budgeting. So if you say, hey, we're bringing the family out, we're going to Atlantis, our budget, for this day is $500, right? You're able to go through, pre-book plan, leave a little bit of a buffer. Maybe that buffer is for food. You go out, enjoy your day, you come back. 1, you were able to schedule your day accordingly. 2, you got there to your excursion, your trip, and you're able to come back timely to be able to make the ship so you didn't miss the cruise. And 3, you were able to stay on budget. So those are a few tips and tricks to be able to navigate your way around Bahamas and specifically the Atlantis piece. Number 5, book your extra excursions, travel, trips, and plans through the cruise. Now, this one is a controversial one, and I will say off the top, the number one reason as to why people don't book it through the cruise is because they feel that they could get a better rate somewhere else. And at certain times, I'm here to tell you, it could be possible, it could be true, I have seen that. However, the risks do not necessarily outweigh the benefits. So, few things. 1, if there are any changes or cancellations through your itinerary, as long as your extension, your excursions, anything else you booked was booked through the cruise line, they will give you an automatic refund. That's something that's at the cruise's discretion. But if they've changed the itinerary, or if that port of call is no longer in the mix, they will give you an automatic refund. And in my personal opinion, it's so much nicer to be able to have the option to get the refund in the event something happens versus not have the option because you just didn't make that port of call because some other extenuating circumstance. So an example, this past month I just came back from Alaska. We were supposed to have a port of call in Skagway. A few days before our travel was supposed to leave, we found out that the Skagway port where the dock was, they had some landslides and it was not going to be safe for the cruise ship to dock at the port. So for that reason, they decided to cancel that port of call. And in that, we also had an excursion available for that particular day, and they gave us an immediate refund that was processed before the cruise even left. So that is one of those things that, though it's frustrating because port of calls are changing in your itinerary due changes and happen. However, that is part of life, especially in the Caribbean with hurricane season coming around the corner. Changes and other modifications will be made. So that's something you want to expect, and that's something you do want to plan for your trip. Overall reviews. Now, as going to Atlantis and being to Atlantis before, it is absolutely beautiful. I'll say each time I have seen the reviews firsthand about individuals who have gone and was not expecting the rates and prices to be what they were to be. The top few complaints that I've heard, and it was also the comedian on that day that we got back on the ship from the Bahamas tour, and that was actually the first question: how many people decided to go to Atlantis? People raised their hand. They said how many people spent out additional money that they didn't plan on spending. How many people plan on going back? So, and the top reasons were: 1, there were a lot of individuals that expected the transport ticket to Atlantis and back to include additional amenities, which it does not. I covered that in the first one, but that is something a lot of people don't understand and don't expect. 2, after getting over to Atlantis, it's nice to see the aquarium, it's nice to see, the entrance of the amusement park and some of the beaches. However, to be able to get access to those areas is an additional cost. Now, if you're traveling as a single traveler, or maybe even as a couple, an additional cost, splurge or here and there may not necessarily be a big deal. But if you do have a big family, especially if you have a lot of kids, or you're just traveling in a large group, those additional costs do add up. And it is something that there were a lot of individuals that said, hey, we're kind of in a tight position at this point in time. You took this 20-25 minute ride out from the cruise port to Atlantis. We're now here in Atlantis. We found that, our ticket that we purchased only included access to maybe a bay and maybe a brief continental kind of lunch situation, and I expected there to be more within the scope of what the ticket actually encompassed. So that is one of those pieces. Hey, I'm Kier. This is Travel Tips by Kier. I'm a former airport employee and world traveler, here to give you all those tips and things that those big companies do not want you to know. Here, I've done it myself, and I've also seen it in action, and I am here to give you the nitty gritty. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're notified when I have a future upload. Definitely comment down below. Let me know if you've been to Atlantis, or if you have an upcoming trip to Atlantis. What excursions or tours did you book? What do you plan on doing? And also, how long do you plan on staying? Leave all those details down below. Also, if you feel like there's anything in the list that I missed from your previous trip to Atlantis. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.